And we're live. All right. First things first, it's a special show today because I have a very special guest. And this is the regular type of show that we're doing, but also it's a little bit of a celebratory type show because we got a lot to celebrate. Big news over here, big things happening. So, my good friend Serhiy is with us today, and he just got his UFC contract and delving into the life of professional mixed martial arts and now at the highest stages at the highest levels. So first things first, Siri, welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man.
I'm looking forward to this because my MMA journey really started with you, and obviously, I'm a novice at best, and still learning. And I think it's going to be a lifelong journey because there's so many parallels that I draw from the MMA world, and just not the physical aspect of it or even the skills aspect of it, but the mental discipline and the consistency and everything that goes into this life. So it started with you, and I started working with you and learning the basics from you initially. And I remember talking to you back in those days. This was, I think, maybe 2019 or 2021.
Pre-COVID, yeah. It's
It
been
was
a while now.
pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID,
Yeah, so it was
100%.
around 2019, exactly. And I remember talking to you at that point, and you were training, and you already had some fights, and you already had an amazing record. And I remember you were talking about, I want to get into the UFC, and that's the path that I'm pursuing, and I just have to get that attention, and just have to get noticed. And it was almost like a big goal. And to see it come to fruition today has been amazing for me. I've seen a lot of successful individuals go through their path and accomplish amazing things in business. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs crush it business wise, but to see somebody, become, a professional athlete at the highest levels and see it go from a goal to a reality and see you every day in the gym training and doing everything that you do, it's been amazing from my perspective. So I just wanted to share that. And before I even get into any questions, man, officially on the record, congratulations. This is an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you. Like you said, man, just a lifelong journey. Focus every single day, and it's just a start now, man. Like now I'm in the big leagues, and it's a new adventure for me. And just again, 1% better every day. I'm only gonna keep growing.
Yeah, it definitely is the start because now you're just getting into really where the game actually is. Now it's just started. It's
100%.
almost like stage one accomplished. Now
Yeah.
chapter two, right? So let me ask you first about Contender Series. You're on Dana White's Contender Series. You got a beautiful knockout win as usual. That's become the norm for you now, and you got the contract awarded to you, and you met Dana and all that. So tell me about the experience from top to bottom. How was that?
Yeah, the experience was it was definitely very surreal, going down there. Like you watch the show. I've been a fan of that Contender Series show for a long time. I've had a few teammates go through that show as well, and I've heard about their experiences. But even like watching, like I watched the first few weeks of the show on TV, like as I was prepping for my fight, which was on week 5. So I got to watch the previous weeks, and it was definitely one thing, seeing it on TV and then actually being there in the moment. But I think just it was a great experience. It was what I visualized. I'm a big advocate for visualization, and mental preparation as well. So when I was there in that actual moment in the back room and stuff, it felt very, very calm and natural for me. It felt like, it's
Mhm.
somewhere I belonged, and I had that feeling in my gut that I belong here. I belong here. I had none of that like imposter syndrome feeling. None of that like feeling like I don't belong. It was like, no, I'm meant to do this, and I'm meant to do this on the biggest stage. It was a crazy opportunity. Played out exactly how I wanted to, and then yeah, I met the boss. Had some great words with him. He got me a bottle of Howler Head whiskey, and I was just like, nice to meet you, boss. And that's about it. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Dana is such a character in the best way possible. I mean, that guy is honestly a national treasure. I feel like he's so inspiring in so many ways. He's such a leader in so many ways. Just his business acumen, but also how genuine he is. He's always himself, and I feel like you have to respect that. So I want to ask you about meeting him and all that too. But before that, in terms of what you said with visualization and training and all of that, I tend to go back and forth on this. So I want to know your thoughts because obviously you've accomplished amazing things and you're continuing to do that. So the success is there, but how much of that do you think is visualization and mental preparation and all this stuff? How much of it do you think is the real work that has to be done?
I think the main thing is the work, and then the visualization is a sprinkle on top.
Mm-hmm.
It's that extra edge. And when you're playing this game against like killers and like you're only fighting the best in the world, I'll take any advantage I can, right? So
Mm,
number one thing is the work. If you're just going out there and you're visualizing and you're manifesting and you're doing these things, but you're not putting in the work, nothing's gonna happen. And I see that sometimes too, which trips me out because like,
mhm,
what do you expect? The universe is gonna toss it to you, right? But you know, if you do all the good work, you put in the hard work, and then you sprinkle top the visualization, the mental reps, all that stuff. I think it's a good combination. And again, like the biggest thing that visualization did to me, it just made me very calm in that moment. I had Mike Malata, a UFC fighter, who also was on that show, and now he's like one of the biggest things in Canada right now. He like
mhm.
pretty much like laid it out for me like in a sauna one night, like maybe 6-7 weeks before the fight, exactly step by step how the whole procedure is going to work, like how the like where I'm going to get picked up from the hotel, where I'm going to go. I'm going to do my drug test. I'm going to go to this back room. You're going to get this equipment. You're going to walk out. Dana's going to be sitting here. Your family's going to be sitting here. Like he like really really broke it down for me, and then
Wow.
I would go into those flow tanks and I would literally try to pull myself into that situation every Saturday after sparring. I would just go in there. I use that as a recovery tool, but I would spend some time visualizing as well. And I think it helps. I think it's a cherry on top. It's not the main thing, but I definitely think it has its place.
Wow, that's amazing that he laid it all out for you, like, down to the detail. That's incredible. So I think the way you put it is the best way to look at it. So I would agree with that. I think the hard work and laying the foundation and the discipline and doing everything you can within your power comes first. That's the primary and really the main aspect of it. But then on top of that, you want to take every advantage you can take. And I feel like as I'm maturing, I'm becoming less stubborn and I'm opening up more to the idea of, just visualization and, all the ideas of the universe is working for me and things like that. Because when I was younger, I thought that was all foo foo and, it's all people that just want to sit there and manifest $1,000,000 as opposed to go out there and get it. So I used to say all the time, you guys sit on your couch all day long, less competition for me. But I feel like you're right. It's might as well take every unfair advantage. And I personally took a deep dive into religion and reading a ton of religious books and going through the Bible and all these different passages and things like that. And I'm just looking for really deeper meanings, looking for parallels, looking for things that apply to my life that I can take. And I think it's exactly like you said. It's just taking every advantage that you can. But that's awesome. And especially in the game that you play, because it's not, there's being a professional athlete and then there's being a professional fighter. I think it's a completely different league when it comes to fitness and when it comes to the mental aspect of it.
100%, man. You're just playing with so much more consequence now, right? Like you lose a soccer game, you lose a basketball game. Like it sucks. Don't get me wrong. You work hard, but you get knocked out in front of all your family, friends, and supporters, and you go viral from getting knocked out. It's like it's a different kind of stress, man. So you got to use all the advantages, all the tools to put yourself in the right headspace to be able to perform in that moment.
Yeah, it definitely is. So when you're going into that octagon and you see Dana, and I think Michael Bisping was there as well, commentating.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's another huge pressure point right there because that
yeah.
guy's a legend, right? So when you're seeing all of that, and you probably had some friends and family, I know some of the coaches were with you. So when you're walking into that octagon, what's going through your mind? I mean, put the average person like me through this experience.
Okay, yeah. So that's like a great question, man. I put myself in a state, and again, this is from lots of reading, lots of like mindfulness books, a lot of like sports psychology books. But I walked out and I pushed those doors open, like to walk into the cage, and I said something like not like you can't really hear it on the camera, but I said player one shit. I literally said player one shit. I said like I'm player one, and this is my like game. I'm the main character of my game, and I came into it with that mindset. So when I walked in the cage and like I started circling and I saw Dana, I was like just treating it like a movie, man. Treating it like I'm the main character of my movie. It put me in a much more positive, grateful state, right? And when I have that like that gratitude state and like that positive state, I flow better, I perform better, I get into the space I need to perform into better. So like that was a very positive experience when I walked in there. I felt confident, loose. I was like, this is like I'm the main character right now. I'm the main event. And again, that's a skill that took me a long time to learn because I remember the first few amateur fights, it was the complete opposite. I felt like I'm getting like a lamb to get slaughtered. I felt like I was walking in the cage and I'm about to get slaughtered in front of everyone, right? And that's just a different mental state. That's a state of fear, right? I walked in with a state of gratitude and appreciation. And again, the universe worked this way. My high self took over and I was able to perform the way I performed.
Hmm. That's amazing. I love that player one mentality. So it's your reality, and you're quite literally, creating your own reality.
100%. And again, like easier said than done, right? Because I try to apply that all the time, but like I was very, very happy with myself that I was able to apply it in such a high pressure situation, because I can say that all camp saying that I'm gonna feel this way, but it was nice to know that my body, my mind, my soul, my spirit, we all like connected in that moment. I was actually able to use those tools that I've been trying to learn and apply in the moment that mattered most, and that's what like made me very, very proud.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know what I just thought about? I remember I was in the gym just a little while ago. I think it was before you went into the contender series, and I had no idea you're going to the contender series, but I knew you're at that point where you're getting noticed and you're about to take that big leap. And I remember, I don't know what day this was, and I don't even think you'll remember it. This just popped into my head as you were talking. I was working out and I saw you in the octagon by yourself, and you were just kind of circling and just kind of like shadow boxing. And I could tell you're very much in your head and you're visualizing something because it seemed very real. It seemed like you're in a completely different world and everybody else there just wasn't even there. And I just remember looking over and seeing that and just thinking to myself, that's amazing dedication. Like that's the type of focus that it takes to accomplish the goals that he's looking to accomplish. And I remember just seeing that. So you just right now saying player one or like, creating my own reality just threw me to that. And, that's the real life version of how you're playing that out for yourself. Do you remember that day by any chance?
Not specifically that day, buddy, but I do that a lot in camp. I'm getting that cage multiple times before that fight, especially like leading up closer and closer, where my training is getting a little bit less and less. I was getting in that cage and I was just flowing through the combinations that, me and my camp, my coaches, we've been working on, and just like you said, full focus, visualizing that guy in front of me, visualizing me landing my shots, visualizing me blocking shots, picking shots off, and trying to turn that into the muscle memory that it has to be. Because to be honest, like I don't think when I fight at all. Like I can hear my coaches call certain things out, and maybe then like I'll have an automatic switch where I'll throw the combo. But when I'm actually like moving around, it's all like like just reactions, right? And hopefully I've built the right skill set to like against the certain opponent, and then I'm just letting it happen. Because if you're thinking in there, it's too slow. You're gonna be too slow. It's impossible to think. You have to like just be in that flow state.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, and I know you've told me that many times as well. It's easier said than done, but obviously at the level that you're playing at, it's definitely necessary. Now, I want to ask you about meeting Dana because Dana White is such a huge personality, right? He's such a just huge aura about him in general from the outside, and I'm sure when you're right there with him. And I told you this when we spoke in person as well. When I first saw you after you came back, and I congratulated you, I said, I've met a lot of high level entrepreneurs, guys doing 9 figures in business and very successful at their own game, and there's always an energy about them. You can just tell when you're in their presence. And I've had scenarios when I was younger, man. I was 16, 17, and I took every dollar I had and I would go to business conferences. And I remember taking a bus and even driving to Florida, Chicago, Atlanta, St. Louis, all these different places. And sometimes I got around pretty successful people. I just happened to get into the room, or I remember one time I kind of lied my way into the VIP section. And we're not going to talk details, but then I met these guys, and I remember one of them putting his hands on my shoulders and just saying, listen, man, if I've done it, you're way more sharp and intelligent than I was at your age, and you can definitely do it. And that type of energy just leaves a lasting impression on you. So I wonder if anything like that happened with you in that experience, and also with meeting Dana. And just generally speaking, how was it meeting him and talking to him?
Yeah, you're spot on there. There's an energy like you almost can't even explain it, right? But like there's like an energy and an aura around that person. And again, from my experience with him, it was a very positive one. He just like again that his presence, everything about him was just very positive that night. Um, so right after the fight, I kind of like walked it. I did my little interview. I walked back to the medical room and I was getting my gloves cut off and just seeing the doctor. It's a mandatory thing you do after every fight. And then he actually walked into that room and congratulated me there. And then he walked out, and it was kind of cool because the doctor actually looked at me. He's like, he doesn't do that. Like he doesn't walk into like the doctor. So I was like, huh,
Oh
interesting,
wow.
cool. Yeah, and then obviously talk again at once I got the contract, I talked to him, I shook his hand, and like when he looked me in the eyes and he smiled, man, like the energy was just like so positive and just so like, like he was happy to be there and he was happy to meet me, and I felt that. And yeah, it was a cool feeling. But like again, there's that like aura around these people, and it's contagious, right? You want to be around these people as much as you can, and like again, try to make yourself that kind of person so you can kind of send that out to other people around you as well.
Do you feel like going to Vegas, and I know afterwards you went to the UFC PI as well, and just meeting Dana and the experiences that you had sort of opened your horizons to a certain degree that you can't go back anymore? Like it almost made this mystical thing real.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like I just best way to kind of like put it is like I just finished a new like a chapter in a book, and now I'm starting a new chapter, and it just validates all the hard work that I've been putting in, and it's exactly it's something I always knew was gonna happen. I always had a gut feeling in myself, like since the day we first met, and I told you my goals and my inspirations. I always had this feeling in my gut that as long as good habits over a period of time, like I will get to where I need to be. And I always trusted the process. It was just very, very cool to like actually pull it off and do it. And now like keep going from there. And like, again, like I keep saying, this is just the beginning now. Like my mindset's now like, okay, I want to go fight these, like win these fights and start fighting these top 10 guys, top 5 guys, and just keep pushing myself. Cause like really for me, man, I just like, it's so fun doing this and leveling yourself up and just seeing how far I can level myself up, man. Like as long as I keep growing as a martial artist, as a person, like I wake up every day so grateful to just like get back on the horse and just get better and better, right? It's so addicting. I can't go back. You're right. There's
Mhm.
no way I would ever be able to go back. Like it just, your eyes get open to something, and it's just like there is no going back.
Yeah, and that's why I asked that too. And I
Yeah.
think your mindset, man, is just filled with so much knowledge and wisdom because it's the perfect example of hard work and commitment and real discipline leading to the exact results that you're looking for. Again, just from us meeting 4 years ago now and talking about these goals and now seeing it become a reality and then seeing the entire process, it's just a story that I can draw so much inspiration from for myself. And I want to ask you some questions on a practical level that everybody watching this, whether they're salespeople, business owners, athletes, they can draw a lot of takeaways from this as well. But just before that, what happens now? Now that you got the UFC contract, you're in the UFC officially, and you're now looking at your first UFC fight. How does that work? Do you know any fights on the calendar? Is there a date or time frame?
Yeah, so now I'm in the UFC. I signed a 4-fight contract. So yeah, I'm pretty much there's some speculation and some things talking about UFC coming to Canada, coming to Toronto, start of January or early February there. It's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. Not officially sure what date, but like that's kind of what I'm heading to right now. Like what a way to start off my UFC career, fighting in front of my family, my friends, my hometown. That would be a dream come true. But right now it's all skill development until that moment. I gotta like you said, I'm only fighting the better guys, so I gotta keep getting better. Like I just signed up for a grappling tournament 3 weeks, Ontario Open. I'm gonna go compete with a bunch of high level jiu-jitsu guys. Get just keep that competitive mindset going. Have a goal to work on, like just these smaller goals that are gonna keep pushing me to get better right now, right? So that's the plan. But like it's that wake up, man, and then how do I get better today? How do I get better? What skills do I need to develop? Like if my mindset is, oh, I made it to the UFC and now I'm good, it's like it's gonna be a hard road, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially in the division that you're in. You're, for anybody who doesn't know, you're going to be fighting in the 135 division, right? Which is, the killer of all killers are all in there. I don't even know how many guys we can name. It's a pretty deep roster,
it's a
right?
deep
Compared to all the
roster.
other ones.
It's a deep roster, man, and like it gets me so excited, right? Because it's just like you're either gonna level up and get to that level, or you're gonna sink and drown. But I'm gonna go for it, right? And that's the mindset.
I was actually just going to ask you, when you're looking at that and the, potential fights to come in the future, do you, it might be a stupid question, but again, as an average person, I'm not a fighter. These are things that I think about when you're in this position now. And if I'm in your shoes and I'm looking ahead, I could either be extremely excited to level up and to face the top competition, or I could be scared as hell. Where are you? Or is it a balance of both? Or, when you're looking ahead at this division?
It's excitement, man. If you asked me that question a few years ago, where like maybe like I didn't have that same kind of mentality, I could say it was maybe more fear, maybe more a bit of both. But at this point, it's excitement, man, because at the end of the day, like, your opponent, the person I'm gonna be able to fight in these challenges, like I just keep treating it like the challenge is only gonna help me grow, right? The challenge is only gonna make me better. So if I start getting in like if for example, if I'm getting ready for a Sean O'Malley, right, or a Corey Sanhagen or somebody at that level, like it's gonna force me to grow, right? And at the end of the day, man, it's like win or learn. Like if I fall short and I know I put every single ounce of like energy into trying to get better, I'm only gonna go from that challenge, right? Like my goal right now is just to be the best martial artist I can be. So yeah, it's excitement. When I hear these names and I hear these guys on the top, there's no fear, there's just excitement. And like again, like it's stressful, it's tough, but like this is the life I chose, and uh I accept the path and accept whatever comes.
Yeah, you know what stands out to me is a couple things. One is the positive mindset. It's win or learn. It's not lose or fail or, the world is over or my life is over and everything else. That's one. And the other one is the level of personal responsibility that you're taking. And I think that's a common trait for success in any industry, in any type of job, career, business, or undertaking, that you want to pursue. It's that personal responsibility that I'm going to control what I can control. And I'm going to do my full due diligence to do that, and then the rest falls where it may. So I can see you taking that level of personal responsibility just from the way you're talking, and I think that's the foundation for the highest levels of success.
Yeah, buddy, that's it, right? Control the controllables, and then everything else, you just let it happen. It's gonna happen how it happens, right? I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I love that. I say that to myself all the time. I said that to myself before my last fight, and I've been saying that for a long time, and it puts you in the right mindset, man. It really does.
Mm-hmm. It's the same reason a lot of people who are very religious also have, and I feel like an easier time in a way, pursuing success and pursuing their goals. Especially we see it with fighters in the UFC as well, because they think, I'm gonna do my best, and then God has a plan, and God's watching over me, and there's a bigger plan here. So regardless, it's out of my hands. I'm gonna do my best, and I'm gonna control what I can control. The rest is already planned out, and I feel like that mindset, whether it's true or not, whether it's right or wrong, we're not here to debate that. The point is that takes all the pressure off of you. And I think that puts you in a good state of mind, especially when you're fighting. I think that's a critical one. So you're just doing that, but from your own perspective, taking that responsibility.
Yes, exactly, man. Exactly.
So I want to ask you this because this is something that fascinates me when it comes to, a lot of high level operators. And I look at, people in business, people in the entrepreneurship realm, but for you, it's fighters and other professional athletes. How do you separate yourself from everybody else when you're amongst uncommon people already? You've heard the saying, you want to be uncommon amongst uncommon people or uncommon men. How do you distinguish yourself or how do you separate yourself? I think this is something everybody can learn from. You don't have to be a professional athlete.
Yeah, great question. I just try to take all the extra steps. Like right now, for me, man, it's like, you know, I look at the world champions. I look at like literally the top five guys in my division and other divisions, and I listen to them, and I listen to their podcasts, and I try to figure out all the little routines that they do. Right now, for me, it's like little things, man. Things that like a lot of athletes don't even think about. Like, how clean is my diet? I'm gonna go do my blood work. I'm gonna go find out my hormone levels. I'm gonna go find out what supplements I need to be on. I'm going to make sure my sleep is completely dialed in. I'm going to have a great nighttime routine so I can actually go to bed properly. I'm going to make sure I'm fully hydrated all the time. I'm going to make sure I have a great morning routine, a great mindfulness practice, that I'm absorbing great information throughout the day. I'm not on social media and like just draining my energy and my battery for no reason, right? Like all these little tiny habits that I'm just trying. It's been years of me just picking, and trying to figure out what works. But I see a lot of athletes, even in the top in the UFC, and they still don't apply these things. They mess up their sleep, they mess up their nutrition. Like Aljamain Sterling, for example, like great athlete, great fighter, but man, his nutrition is horrible. And it's just like, you're the top of the top and you're losing that little bit of percentage, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's like I'm just trying to hit every single thing possible to make me an optimized performer. Yeah, and I would say that's what's going to separate me. Do that, do the cold plunges, do the saunas, get in that float tank, get into the mobility. Like it's everything, and I just combine it together. And I think if I just add these little 1%, I'm doing more than the average person, and I think I'm operating almost at a world champion level already, which I have to be.
Yeah, and I think you are too. So it goes down to the details and what you said earlier. Take every unfair advantage or every single advantage that you can, to get ahead of that competition and to just separate yourself from the pack. Now, speaking of routines, I was going to ask you this, and this is a perfect segue. I'm a big believer in structure and routines. I've come and talked to you about my morning routines and that all the time, and it's because I respect your opinion. I see the work that you put in, and again, I said earlier, there's professional athletes and there's professional fighters. Same thing when it comes to your physicality, when you're in shape. When I see you and other fighters, the shape that you guys are in is just completely different than pretty much any other athlete. So I've asked you a lot of questions about my fasting and my routines and things like that. So what have you found works really well for you in terms of a morning routine and then evening routine? So what does it look like for you right now?
Yeah, great question. Morning routine. There's a couple key things I'm hitting, and again, a lot of the stuff I get is from like Andrew Huberman. Like he's got
Mm-hmm.
some great information. But the big things I bang out, man, that start my morning off really well is like I'll get in, I'll hit some kind of cold exposure, like regardless if that's a cold shower, maybe an ice bath, whatever it is. I get into some kind of cold. I find that wakes me up right away. Number two is like I make sure I do a little mindfulness practice, 10-15 minutes max. I get through that. I don't check social media till after my first practice. That's something I started doing last camp only. But I want to start my day proactive, not reactive, right? I want to wake up in the morning and it's all about like the things I have to do. I noticed that if I even checked my phone, I had some messages I had to get through, or whatever it is, it put me in a more of a reactive state. And now I'm kind of like my brain's not 100% focused in on what I have to be doing, which is the training. That was a big thing. And then hydrating properly with electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, making sure I'm properly hydrated, and then getting morning sunlight. Getting that, like I go for a 10-minute, 15-minute walk with my girlfriend every morning, just get a little bit of sunlight, and then I'll have my coffee. Usually about 90 minutes after I wake up, I'll have my coffee. And that's my morning routine. And I love, if I don't do my morning routine, even after my fight, like the next day, I still got to hit some of these morning things because it just makes my day better. I'm more
Mm-hmm.
productive. I'm more clear headed. I feel like I have more energy. Again, like I'm proactive, not reactive. So yeah, that morning
So this
routine
is like every day, 7 days a week, 365.
every day, rest day, doesn't matter. Like it's always, if I have like 2 hours in the morning, we're making this a longer routine. We'll get some stretching going, we'll go for a real walk, we'll have some high protein breakfast. But yeah, like the big things I would say that no matter what I always hit is the cold, the meditation, the morning sunlight, and with the third fourth one, or journaling
Mm-hmm.
is a big one. Yeah, just writing down
Okay.
my day, what am I going to do? I usually do that the night before, but I put everything in like I gamify it. I have it all gamified, right? It's a check, like a box, and then I got to check mark it the next day. If I look there at the end of the night, and I don't have a check mark by that box. That's like, man, I didn't get that done, and it makes
Mm-hmm.
me like. I will get it done because I can't go to bed without having it done, man. It makes me upset. I'm like I didn't get it done, and I put a little score out of 10 on the bottom of every journal entry, like out of 10, and I rate my day from 1 to 10. How close did I get to the goals I wanted to accomplish? And when I
Yeah,
put
I
that
think
10
that
out of
guilt is a
10,
huge motivator.
sorry, that yeah,
That guilt of not getting it done, I think people underestimate that. That's a huge motivator.
yeah, because you put it on paper the night before when you're motivated. Everybody's motivated the night before. I'm gonna crush
Yeah.
tomorrow. I'm gonna kill it. But yeah, you wake up and maybe you didn't have the best sleep, or you're a little bit sore, a little bit tired. But it's already on paper. The box is next to it. Are you gonna check mark it, or you're not gonna check mark it, right? And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is a huge motivator. And then it feels so good when you hit all those checks. You put that 10 out of 10, and I'm very very picky on that 10 out of 10, man. Like I'll go at 9.5. I'll go 9.2, like if I miss
Mm-hmm.
anything, right? If I checked my phone too much that day and I maybe scrolled more than I wanted to, boom, it's not a 10 out of 10 no more, cuz I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
make it perfect, bro. And those are the
So
days you
you're
go to
actually
bed.
putting a score on it. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the days you go to bed and you're very very satisfied, and like again, couple of the you can cycle a couple of those days in a row and you feel amazing, man.
And do you have an evening routine as well? Nighttime? How do you wind down?
Yeah, buddy, great question too, man. I love this routine stuff because, like, again, when I was like when I was coming up, I was just like, I love figuring out smart people's routines. I'm like, what are these guys doing, right? But for me, man, the big thing in the routine is like after training, I sauna every night. So the last thing I'll do before I leave the gym is I'll hit a sauna up. I'll stretch out. Like I like to do 15, 20 minutes of stretching out. take my supplements, usually some magnesium. I'll have some tea, some nighttime tea, and I'll go for a walk. Those are the big things, man. And again, same idea. I try to get off my phone at least an hour before bed. Sometimes, I'm with my girlfriend and we're enjoying a night. Like right now, I'm not really in camp. I'm a little more lenient of like, I got to live life a little, watch a movie with my girlfriend. But when I'm in camp, I'm like, I get off that technology, man. I just stretch. I'll read my book before I go to bed, something like that. And usually I'll read 3 pages. I'm already passing out, which I know I'm going to have a good sleep. But yeah, the big things at night would be the stretching, the nighttime walk, and yeah, just winding everything down.
Like you said, man, I love this too, because just like you said, when I was younger, I used to watch all these interviews and all these business gurus, quote unquote. And sometimes I felt like they're dodging questions, or they're not really giving me the information that I want to hear because I was up and coming, and I want to learn what they're doing and what's working for them. So that's why nowadays I feel like, it's almost our duty to like, talk about all this and give that information back. And that's why I want to dig deep into all this. Because if I'm listening to this podcast myself, I would want to know that stuff. When I'm listening to guys like you said, who are high level guys, athletes, and things of that nature, I'm always listening for, okay, what do they do? What works for them? It's always really interesting to me. Now, last question on the routine stuff. Is there a set time you're sleeping and waking up every day?
Yes. 11 to 8 is usually like my time, man. Like I use the Oura sleep tracker, right? And it's like one big thing it always recommends is like have a set routine. Like go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every night. So that's
Mm-hmm.
roughly it. Sometimes if I'm like even like super tired in camp, I'll go to bed like 10, 9:30, and I usually sleep till 8. Like I always get above 8 hours of sleep. Again, everybody's different. I just feel like because I train 2, 3 times a day, the more sleep I can get, the better it's gonna be for me, man. So I'm always just trying to recover, like get quality deep sleep, get quality REM sleep. But yeah, I try to stick with that same routine. It's funny because even on a weekend, after a fight, we'll stay up a little bit later, and I wake up the morning and I feel different. My sleep score's lower, right? Like it does have a big impact, right? Like just everything routine is the best. Naturally, my body will wake up around those times, anyways.
Mm-hmm. So you're getting pretty much 9 hours or so. So you're prioritizing sleep in a big way. And I know you've told me that before, but for some reason that just never registers for me. I've just never been a fan of sleep. And I feel like I'm one of those individuals that it's weird, man. When I sleep less, I feel better. And this may be completely subjective. I'm not saying on an objective, physiological level, I'm better, or my numbers are better or whatever else. But I'm just saying, if I oversleep, I'm mentally done for that day. I almost feel like I failed that day. Like you said, when you score yourself. But when I undersleep, but I'm up early and I'm getting after it, I feel incredible. So for me, it's always been a weird dynamic with sleep.
Yeah, man. Like you said, everybody's so different. Everybody's different. You just got to find the way you play around with it all and you operate. I've tried that, sleep less, and I wake up and I'm like a zombie, dude. I cannot function. I can't make it to practice. Like I'm like to the point, man. If I get under 8 hours of sleep, I'm hurting, bro. But then like again,
Wow.
you're not the first person I've heard say this, right? Where they're like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
good, 6, 5 hours, I'm good, I'm functioning. So it's just like teach
Mm-hmm.
their own. You just got to find what works for you, right? That's the biggest
Yeah,
thing.
and it's also different because me, working all day and taking meetings and calls and being in business is completely different. You're beating your body down. You're, working hard, lifting, training, doing 3 sessions a day. So I think it's completely different. When the
Mm-hmm.
way you feel at the end of the night is not the way that I feel. I think that
Mm-hmm.
you have to take that into consideration as well. So it makes sense you're getting a lot of sleep. But I wanted to ask you, all of this sounds great, but we both know the average person doesn't really have quite the discipline to do all this. And even if they do, usually it's the classic story, right? Wake up early one day, then can't do it over more than 2, 3 days. And then, it's ups and downs. It's like the yo-yo diet, but with their habits, right?
Right.
So what are some pieces of advice that maybe the average person or the average entrepreneur, business owner who wants to be operating at a high level can take away from you? What are some ways that you can be more consistent? Is there anything that's worked for you? Anything you would recommend?
Yeah, so I would say number one, break like these goals into like smaller chunks at first, right? Like again, I have a pretty like long morning routine, nighttime routine. Again, it's because I have a flexible schedule that I operate on my own time. But hey, if you can't meditate, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, do like a 2 minute breath workout, right? If you can't get into a cold plunge, jump in the cold shower, finish off the cold shower, right? Like little things like that. And again, be prepared to fail. Like, it's okay to fail. Like, how many times did I start a routine and I gave up on that? Like, I go 4 days with the routine, then I'd mess up, and then I get off it for 2 days. Then I get back on it, then I get back off it, and then on it. And then over time, I started like just understanding how much better I feel and how much better I perform. And guess what? Like we talked about in the beginning, like once you understand how like what way you can operate on, you don't want to go back no more, right? Like it's hard to go back. Like if you're feeling so amazing and you're feeling so good because you're eating clean and your sleep is better and your routines are better, and then you start falling off of that again and you start going back to that like, oh wow, I'm feeling horrible again. Like it's very hard to do that, but the big things is just make these into smaller chunks. Maybe just start with one thing like the cold shower. Maybe start with that morning sunlight, right? And then add things in over time and be okay to fail. Just because if I get off it for one day, I'm right back on it. But I'm telling everybody, I keep saying this to people, like I failed more times than I can count, man. Like adding these routines in, because it's not natural, right? Like that stuff. I didn't do it one way for a certain. Like I have so many mental reps of doing it a certain way. Now I try to do it a different way, but it's gonna take reps, right? And like you just got to keep doing it. But yeah, don't be afraid to fail and just start over the next day, man. Every day's a fresh opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm. And how important do you think it is to be very clear on the end goal? Because I feel like you have that, right? You knew I want to get into the UFC. I want to be a mixed martial arts fighter at the highest levels. I want to be the champ. I have these, it's very specific goals. It's a specific vision. But maybe I'm just thinking the average person doesn't have that. You know, it's like get through life, get a career, have kids, family, whatever. Even the average business owner, man, I work with so many business owners. And when I go in, you'd be surprised the lack of goals, the lack of targets. It's just, yeah, we want to continue to work with more people, land more clients, but it's how many clients, what revenue targets are you aiming for? So there's no clarity. But I feel like for me personally, clarity is so important. If I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, there's no way I'm going to do it. I just know myself. So I always get clear first, then I start to put structure and routines in place. So do you think that's a factor that the average person is not consistent because they don't have that total clarity?
100%, 100%. You need, for me, the two big things is number one, have those clear goals. I know where I want to go to. Also enjoy the journey, enjoy every single day. But yeah, like if you're just going day by day, like not really thinking about what's the future, man. Like that's kind of like that freaks me out, man. Like to be honest, I can't operate that kind of mindset because 5 years down the road, like what changed? Nothing, right? Like that kind of scares me.
Mhm.
So yeah, people need goals, and again, it could be business goals, it could be physical goals, it could be relationship goals, right? Like all these things can work. But yeah, you definitely need to do that because oh yeah, man, that's a scary. I don't even know how to live without goals, to be honest. That's a tough one, right? But I get it. Some people,
Yeah.
yeah, some people kind of fall into the matrix of like 9 to 5, and then do it over again, do it over again. But again, I think adding in these little routines, adding in these little habits over time, like you'll just notice like you're just a happier person too, man. Like you just become a little bit more happier. You feel like your life has a little bit more purpose. You're a little more fulfilled, and those things will just snowball over time, and then hopefully with some good habits, you'll start figuring out some good goals, and then you build your way up from there, right?
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunately most people that are in that quote unquote matrix or that way of life where there's no clear target. So luckily, I found that through being in sales and being in business, there's always clear targets. You found that through martial arts and doing what you do, or there's a very clear goal. And if you don't achieve those goals, there's also dire consequences. So you have to sort of either be all in or all out. And I think that's an important factor in the game that you play. It's not really an option to be half in or half out. You're going to find out really quickly if you're only half in. And I think in the real world, or, I mean, it's all the real world, but in
Mm-hmm.
the average person's world or in business, it's not always that quick that you find out. So you can go through years and years and years until you get slapped in the face and realize you've only been half in and you didn't get those results. So I think the timing and really what you do is a specific element, but it really puts you all in. It's clear, man, your mindset is the reason you are where you are today. So a final piece of question on the mindset that I'm just curious, because I know we've personally talked about this offline. Are there specific books that you've read or books you'd recommend, the average person or the average entrepreneur to go and read to get their mindset dialed in like yours is?
Yeah, there's a lot, buddy. for like sport, if we're talking about like sports, one book that like just like performance wise, one book that I've been really enjoying is like The Inner Game of Tennis. I've reread that book like 5, 6, 7 times. I just reread pages. I listen to it on a podcast, or sorry, an Audible, and I'll just like re-listen to it while I'm driving on my car. But yeah, The Inner Game of Tennis, that was a big sports book, man, and that just like helps with not just sport like performance, but also how to learn and how to coach. So all these things that I do, right? I coach my students, right? As well
Mhm.
as I perform, as well as I need to learn new skills. So it kind of covers all three of those things in one book, right? And then another one would be the Mindful Athlete. Again,
Mhm.
that was the coach of Michael Jordan and stuff, Bulls coach, and he was just a sports psychologist. Again, kind of brought in a little more spirituality to the team as well, but it was just like learning how to operate with a heart full of gratitude, right? And operating in the right mindset, things like that. And then I've been also really into like Ryan Holiday lately. I know he's a
Mhm.
stoicism, right? Like just kind of things like that. The obstacle is the way. Like what a great book that is. I've reread that book. This camp actually, that book was like calling me, man. Like because I've read it before, and for some reason I was wake up and like it's like, yo, read that book. And like a week went by, and I'm like, I picked up that book and I just started reading it again because I'm like, I don't know why. It was just, it was calling me, it was drawing to me, and like I read it all the way, the whole flight to Vegas. I read it on fight week. I read it the day of the fight, like, and like books like that, man. But I love reading, man. I love absorbing knowledge, and that's something I do every single day, even if it's just 10 pages. Just go through it and add in that like positive information that's going to help you grow every single day instead of absorbing TikTok or some other shit that like is just going to drain your battery. That's all battery drainers, right? Like we don't need that.
Yeah, the first two books I haven't read, so I'll definitely grab those today after this. But Obstacle is the Way and Ego is the Enemy, and all the other Stoic books, by
Yes.
the way, by Stoic philosophers like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, On the Shortness of Life by Seneca is one I've reread, I don't know, probably over 100 times now. And I love that one. And it's crazy you said the book is calling you because I feel like that a lot of times, man. And in my head, I'm like, am I crazy or something? It's a weird feeling because I'm not the most spiritual guy. Like I'm
Yeah.
just not. I really haven't been. But as I get older and as I get more mature, it's interesting. I'm getting pulled more towards the spiritual realm, if you want to call it that, or spirituality. I
Mm-hmm.
have no exaggeration, quite literally, an entire box of books, like right there, I'm looking at it, that are all religious and spiritual books because I'm just fascinated now. I just want to get into it with an open mind and just read and see what I can pull from it. But I have that so many times where books almost like call to me. And more recently, it was Seneca's book. And I talked to one of my other buddies. Actually, we did a podcast too. And I talked to him about it. We talked about it on that podcast too. And it was the books on the shortness of life. And it's all about time and how most people waste their time. But if that time is invested wisely, we have more than enough time in our lives to accomplish the highest of achievements. And the message was just resonating so much with me at that moment. And it's crazy that that book literally called to me in my head. You know what I mean? It sounds so crazy, but when you said that, I was like, finally, someone who gets it.
Yeah, buddy, that's happened to me multiple times. And I don't even fight it. I'm just like, okay, this is what I need to read, right? Like there's no fighting it, man. And that's cool, man. Maybe yeah, like I don't know what that is too, but it works.
Yeah, that's a common idea, right? That like ideas or thoughts or whatever else are actually some type of communication from whatever realm. I mean, again, without it sounds all crazy, but everything's crazy. Our entire lives are crazy. The fact that we're on a rock spinning at crazy speeds in the middle of nowhere is also crazy. So,
Yeah.
it's all crazy.
It's all
You know, it
crazy,
just
brother.
yeah,
Exactly.
it just
Exactly.
depends how much you want to buy into it and how much you want to control your own reality. Because I think that's what it comes down to. I think honestly, man, and you would definitely agree with this, just because I know you. I think when you accept the crazy, that's when you can start to manipulate your reality. That's when you can kind of start to exert your willingness onto your actual reality.
Hundred
Correct or
percent.
no?
Yeah, 100%, man. Like that's when you realize, yo, I can maneuver this reality the way I want to, and this doesn't have to be such a fixed point, right? Where like I'm stuck in this. It's a mindset thing, man. It's a mindset thing. It's that growth mindset thing. It's understanding like all the things you're talking about. And but I think you do need that knowledge from all the things you read and all the information you absorb, right? Because if you're absorbing the right information, this will make sense to you. If you're absorbing the wrong information, like this all seems like crazy talk.
Yeah, man. And you talked about early in this conversation, and I want to go full circle and then ask you a final question to wrap up our talk here today. You talked early on about taking every advantage that we can. And on this topic, we have thousands of years of human history, human knowledge accumulated, books written, like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a Roman emperor who ran the world at that time, writing down his own thoughts to himself, his own personal journal. So for us not to read that, not to take advantage of that, or just to think, I'm going to figure life out, or, I'm too busy working. It's just so ignorant, right? So I feel like when we see that and we acknowledge that and we tap into that knowledge, that's when we can really capitalize on it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot that we can take away from all of that. So final question I ask everybody, and I wish we had more time. I want to talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but at this point, again, you got the UFC to look forward to. You got Corey Sandhagen and Sean O'Malley and all these guys waiting at the door to welcome you. So, I want to let you get back to practice. So last question that I ask everybody is, knowing everything you know today, in the position you're in today, all the experiences you've had today, right? The person that you are today, if you could go back to your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Wow, that's a great question, man. I think it would just be my philosophy on learning skills, man. Like like for me especially, like when I was younger, I think I brought a lot of ego into my training, into my learning. Like for example, I know I'm learning a new technique and it's just not going my way. So I'm gonna rely on my athleticism and I'm just gonna rely on doing it a different way. And then I never learned that technique, right? And little things like that, I just brought my ego into it too much. But now it's like I'm treating learning like a completely different thing. I treat a new technique like a newborn baby. This little baby has, like, it's brand new, it doesn't know what to do. It's gonna fail, but like I'm gonna keep that positive mindset, understand it's going to fail, and I'm gonna like nurture it, and over time it'll get me where I want to go. And I've noticed that because of this kind of mindset, I pick up techniques way quicker, I learn quicker, so I progress quicker. That's a big thing. And again, I didn't know much about the ego, I didn't know much about mindfulness when I was younger. I've already got like the students that I train with, like Matt, who runs some of the boxing classes. I had him on books about stoicism and meditation and stuff when he was like 14, 15. Like that, what kind of not like what an amazing thing to be that young and understand that kind of stuff, right? And
Mhm.
like again, like everybody gets their own timing to when they get introduced to these things, but wow, like what advantage that would be, because I always had that physical, like I'm gonna grind and I'm gonna put in the work and like all that kind of stuff. But man, adding in that mental layer, that's the key. So if I was younger, man, I would just do that. And but now, since I can't be younger, I want to make sure that all my students and all the people that are coming up that I see put in the work, I want to give them that knowledge, because I believe that's just gonna, like, that mental game will take you levels above. Doesn't have to be fighting, it can be anything in life. If you have that mental component in your game and you have that right mindset, wow, you can change the world.
That's beautifully put, and a perfect place to wrap up our conversation today, man. I want to have you back on over and over again to talk about your wins, successes, when you get that UFC belt around your waist, and to many more wins and everything else that's to come. Thank you so much for your time, man. Appreciate it, and I'm excited to see your journey.
Thank you, brother. That was a great talk, man. Talk soon.